She wore the Queen's sapphires like they already belonged to her family, but behind palace walls, Princess Anne was allegedly preparing for war. That is the chilling accusation now exploding across royal circles as claims emerge that Queen Elizabeth's deeply personal sapphire collection may have quietly drifted into the orbit of Queen Camilla's private family. And according to insiders, Princess Anne did not react with polite royal restraint. She reportedly reacted like a daughter protecting the final pieces of her mother's soul. Because these were not random jewels locked inside a palace vault. These sapphires carried memories, grief, power, and 70 years of monarchy. And now the palace is allegedly scrambling to contain a confrontation that could permanently fracture the fragile balance inside the royal family. She wore them, she flaunted them, and then suddenly whispers started spreading through royal corridors that certain sapphire pieces connected to Queen Elizabeth's legendary collection were appearing far too close to Camilla's private inner circle. That was the moment everything allegedly changed. Princess Anne, the one royal nobody dares challenge directly, reportedly stepped in with cold fury. Not for publicity, not for drama, but because she allegedly believed the Queen's legacy was being quietly diluted behind closed doors while the public remained distracted by ceremonial appearances and smiling photographs. The sapphire collection itself is not ordinary royal jewelry. It is emotional history frozen in diamonds and deep blue stones. Queen Elizabeth received the original sapphire suite from King George VI on her wedding day in 1947. A necklace, earrings, a brooch, later expanded with the famous Belgian sapphire tiara. These pieces followed her through decades of state visits, crises, wars, scandals, jubilees, and political upheaval. Every photograph of the Queen wearing those sapphires became part of British royal mythology. Those jewels were not accessories. They became visual symbols of stability itself. That is why this alleged confrontation feels so explosive. Because to Princess Anne, these sapphires were never supposed to become private trophies floating into untitled households. What makes this situation even more sensitive is the timing. Almost immediately after Queen Elizabeth's death in September 2022, Queen Camilla began publicly wearing the Belgian sapphire tiara. State banquets, diplomatic receptions, high-profile royal events, and each appearance sent a message, whether intentional or not. Camilla was stepping directly into the visual legacy of Queen Elizabeth herself. Some royal watchers saw it as respectful continuity. Others saw something colder, strategic positioning, quiet replacement. And according to palace whispers, Princess Anne was watching every detail very carefully. Camilla reportedly paired the sapphires with some of the monarchy's most recognizable diamond pieces, creating an image so striking that critics began openly questioning whether she was trying to recreate Queen Elizabeth's iconic royal presence piece by piece. That tension was already simmering beneath the surface long before Laura Lopes' name allegedly entered the conversation. Because Laura is not a working royal. She holds no royal title, no constitutional role, no official protection. She is the Queen Consort's daughter, yes, but still a private citizen. And that distinction matters enormously inside palace tradition. The royal family operates under invisible rules more powerful than written law. Some jewels belong emotionally to the monarchy itself. They represent continuity, sacrifice, history, public identity. They are not simply inherited like family furniture after a funeral. That is exactly why reports suggesting certain sapphire pieces may have quietly circulated toward Camilla's private household triggered such intense reactions behind palace walls. Princess Anne allegedly viewed it not merely as inappropriate, but as deeply disrespectful to Queen Elizabeth's memory. And if there is one royal who treats the Queen's memory almost like sacred ground, it is Anne. She was with her mother during the final hours of her life. She accompanied her coffin across Scotland. She carried the emotional burden of protecting her legacy while the entire world watched in mourning. People forget something important about Princess Anne. She may avoid headlines, but inside the royal structure, she is feared for her directness. She does not soften her opinions. She does not play emotional games. And according to insiders, when questions arose about missing sapphire pieces or unusual access surrounding Camilla's private family circle, Anne reportedly wasted no time making her position brutally clear. The phrase hidden sapphire collection only intensified public fascination. Because Queen Elizabeth owned hundreds of jewelry pieces the public never fully saw, brooches stored privately, necklaces rarely photographed, tiaras redesigned over decades, entire sets kept away from public catalogs. After her death, no transparent inventory was ever released. The palace remained silent, and silence inside the monarchy always creates suspicion, especially when priceless royal heirlooms are involved. That silence became even louder when reports emerged that certain lesser-known sapphire pieces may have been accessed quietly outside outside the expected royal rotation. Princess Anne reportedly knew exactly which pieces belonged where because she spent decades beside her mother watching how these jewels were handled. She understood their emotional meaning better than almost anyone alive, which means if Anne truly believed pieces connected to Queen Elizabeth's sapphire legacy were drifting toward private possession, the confrontation was almost inevitable. And insiders claim it was not polite, not ceremonial, not hidden behind palace smiles. Princess Anne allegedly confronted the situation with absolute firmness, demanding the return of pieces tied to the Queen's sapphire collection, not because of money. Tens of millions of pounds mean nothing to royals born into unimaginable privilege. This was about symbolism, ownership, legacy, control over history itself. The palace now faces a terrifying balancing act. If they deny everything, speculation grows louder. If they acknowledge anything publicly, they risk exposing internal fractures involving the king's own wife. That is why official silence remains so intense. But according to royal insiders, the damage may already be done. Relationships between Anne and Camilla's inner circle are reportedly colder than ever. Trust has allegedly collapsed behind palace doors. The real panic inside palace walls allegedly began after Princess Anne realized this situation was no longer about a few missing jewels. It was about precedent. Because if Queen Elizabeth's deeply personal sapphire pieces could quietly drift toward a private household connected through marriage rather than bloodline, then what stopped the monarchy's most sacred symbols from slowly dissolving into personal possession over time? That fear reportedly pushed Anne into full confrontation mode. And according to royal insiders, once Anne reaches that point, there is no calming her down with public relations spin or carefully rehearsed palace statements. Sources claim Anne allegedly viewed the entire situation as a dangerous erosion of royal boundaries. Camilla's daughter, Lopes, may be socially connected to the monarchy, but she is still outside the official royal structure. No title, no constitutional responsibility, no public duty to the crown. Yet somehow, whispers began circulating that pieces emotionally tied to Queen Elizabeth's sapphire legacy were appearing within reach of Camilla's private family circle. To Anne, that reportedly crossed a line that should never have been approached. And what makes this story feel even darker is the timing surrounding King Charles himself, because insiders claim Charles allegedly wanted to avoid open conflict at all costs. The last thing the palace needed was another royal civil war exploding behind closed doors, while public trust in the monarchy already felt fragile. But Anne reportedly refused to soften her stance simply for the sake of appearances. She allegedly believed silence would only encourage more quiet transfers, more blurred boundaries, more confusion over who truly safeguards Queen Elizabeth's legacy now that she is gone. Royal commentators have repeatedly pointed out that Queen Elizabeth's personal jewelry collection remains surrounded by secrecy. Her will is sealed. The inventory was never fully released. The palace carefully controls what the public sees and what remains hidden forever inside royal vaults. That secrecy may protect the monarchy in some ways, but it also creates fertile ground for suspicion. Because when nobody knows exactly where every sapphire, necklace, brooch, and tiara officially belongs, stories like this become almost impossible to disprove completely. Princess Anne reportedly knows this better than anyone. She spent decades watching her mother manage these jewels personally. Queen Elizabeth reportedly treated certain sapphire pieces almost like extensions of family memory itself. Some represented her father. Others symbolized milestones during her reign. Some were worn during periods of national crisis. Every piece carried emotional weight far beyond money. That is why Anne allegedly sees these sapphires not as glamorous decorations, but as historical artifacts tied directly to the identity of the monarchy itself. And according to insiders, Anne became especially furious over fears that less photographed sapphire pieces could disappear quietly without public scrutiny. The tiaras worn at state banquets receive attention, but smaller private pieces? Those could allegedly move through palace corridors unnoticed. That possibility reportedly terrified Anne because once jewels enter private circulation, recovering them becomes politically explosive. The fallout now extends far beyond Lopes herself. This confrontation has reportedly reopened deeper resentment surrounding Camilla's role within the royal family. For years, critics accused Camilla of carefully consolidating influence step by step, appearance by appearance, symbol by symbol. Every tiara worn, every state portrait, every ceremonial position. And now some royal watchers believe this sapphire controversy has intensified fear appears that Queen Elizabeth's carefully preserved legacy is gradually being reshaped around Camilla's image instead. That tension becomes even more uncomfortable when compared to Princess Catherine and Princess Charlotte. Palace insiders often frame Kate as the future guardian of royal continuity. Reports already suggest certain jewels are expected to remain firmly within the direct line of succession through Charlotte one day. That path feels stable, predictable, traditional, but the idea of historically significant sapphires drifting toward untitled private households allegedly alarmed Anne because it challenged the monarchy's unwritten hierarchy entirely. And perhaps the most revealing part of this entire story is that the palace has not aggressively crushed the rumors. Usually, when completely false stories emerge, royal sources quietly leak dismissals to friendly media outlets. But this time, silence. Cold silence. And royal silence often speaks louder than denial. And now insiders claim certain sapphire pieces are allegedly being returned into official royal control, though nobody expects the palace to confirm that publicly. Doing so would ignite a scandal touching Camilla, Charles, Anne, and the Queen's sealed inheritance all at once. The monarchy simply cannot afford that level of exposure. But privately, relationships may already be shattered beyond repair, because Princess Anne reportedly made one thing brutally clear during this alleged confrontation. Queen Elizabeth's legacy is not available for quiet redistribution behind palace walls. Not now, not ever. And maybe that is why this story continues haunting royal watchers around the world. Because underneath the jewels, the tiaras, the sapphires, and the palace whispers lies a far more dangerous battle. A battle over who owns the memory of Queen Elizabeth herself, who protects it, who controls it, and who gets erased from it. Princess Anne allegedly believes the answer is simple. The Queen's sapphires belong to history, not personal ambition. And if anyone tries moving them into the shadows again, Anne will reportedly fight like the last guardian standing between the monarchy and the quiet disappearance of its most sacred symbols.